Buenos días. Bienvenidos a la rueda de prensa que va a ofrecer a continuación el doctor Yann Lecun, Premio Princesa de Asturias de Investigación Científica y Técnica. Recuerden, por favor, antes de formular una pregunta, levanten la mano, les pasaremos un micrófono y deben indicar su nombre y el medio para el que trabajan. Les rogamos, por favor, que silencien sus teléfonos móviles. Vamos a comenzar directamente con el turno de preguntas.
Sí, hola, buenos días. Jaime Martín, de la agencia EFE. Ante todo, enhorabuena por este premio. Y me gustaría saber si en una escala de 1 a 100 o de 1 a 1000, perdón, ¿en qué situación nos encontramos ahora mismo o qué camino deberíamos recorrer aún para que la inteligencia artificial pudiese hacer de un robot, tuviese una forma de pensar parecida a la del ser humano o una percepción parecida? Gracias.
It's very difficult to answer that question exactly because we don't really know what would be involved in building an intelligent system with the same level of intelligence as humans. What we know is that we're missing some essential pieces, some essential components, or some essential principles, because the type of intelligent machines we can build today don't seem to be able to learn with nearly the same efficiency as humans and animals. So any teenager can learn to drive a car in about 20 hours of practice, and we still don't have completely autonomous self-driving cars. So obviously we're missing something really big. And one thing that we are observing is that humans and animals, babies, human and animals, seem to learn a lot about how the world works in the first few weeks and months of life, with a type of learning that we haven't been able to reproduce with machines yet. So the real question is, are we going to be able to reproduce this type of learning, which I call self-supervised learning, but others may disagree on what the nature of it is. And once we can reproduce this learning, I think it will unlock a lot of new possibilities for AI systems. And, you know, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 20 years. We don't really know. And once we have this principle, there will most likely be other obstacles that we need to clear before we get systems that are intelligent, that has as much common sense as a cat or a dog, and then all the way to humans. In addition to this, there is the question of computational power. So the raw computational power of the human brain is enormous. And currently, the technology that we have at our disposal for, you know, electronic computer technology is about 100,000 to 1 million times less efficient. So if we were to build a computer with a compute power approaching that of the human mind, its power consumption would be something like 1 or 10 megawatts, whereas the human brain consumes 25 watts. So we are very far away in terms of computer technology. Now, that doesn't mean that we will not be able to build very impressive intelligent systems over the next few years. We already have. So we will have an increasingly large number of highly specialized intelligent systems. And then as time goes by, as we make progress in self-supervised learning and other methods, we will extend the scope of their intelligence, perhaps to the point that they can get some level of common sense. But I can't tell you how long it's going to take.
Gracias. Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Hola, Silvia Rúa de Radio Asturias. Quería preguntarle por el efecto de la inteligencia artificial o de los países que la puedan desarrollar más respecto a aquellos que no la puedan desarrollar, respecto a la desigualdad sobre todo, ¿no? ¿Cómo puede afectar a la desigualdad o a la igualdad?
Right, so there are several questions about the effect and of dissemination of AI across the world. The first thing that we need to realize is that AI is already giving access to technology to people who currently or until now really didn't have access. So, for example, we now have reliable speech recognition systems, and that enables about something like 800 million people in the world who are illiterate to use technology. Many of them in developing countries. And a lot of those people increasingly have smartphones. And so that basically gives them a way of interacting with the world and have access to information even though they can't read. Same for people with visual impairment. We have systems that basically can describe photos and pictures that are shared on social networks. We have systems, of course, for many years that can synthesize speech. And now we're starting to have real-time speech-to-speech translation system, which will eventually allow people who speak languages that are not very widely disseminated to basically communicate with the rest of the world. So my colleagues at Meta Fundamental AI Research Lab, we call it FAIR, have produced a system recently called NLLB, that means No Language Left Behind. And what the system does is that it can translate from within 200 languages, it can translate in any direction. Okay, so it's about 40,000 directions between those 200 languages. And fairly accurately. And 200 languages is a lot. It's not nearly enough. There are several thousand languages spoken in the world today, many of which are not written. So for the languages that are not written, which includes a lot of dialects, including one here in Asturias, and in my family home region in Brittany, it's the same. There is local languages that are kind of disappearing, and for those you would need speech-to-speech translation that doesn't go through text because many of those languages are not spoken, and the technology exists. So there was an announcement only 2 weeks ago, again by my colleagues, about a direct speech-to-speech translation system that can translate from Hokkien, which is a kind of Asian dialect spoken in China, but not written, into English, and vice versa, and it's completely speech-to-speech. You don't need to go through text for that. So I think there is a lot of potential applications of AI for the developing world, including in things like agriculture, energy production, and management, and things of that type. But yet, indeed, one question is, will the fruits of technology development be shared widely across the world? And that's a political question. It's not a scientific question. And I'm a scientist, I'm not a politician. But so the question is, what are the best political arrangements or decisions so that the progress of science and technology are widely shared across the world? And to the extent that AI will help us solve some of the major problems that humanity is facing, I think everyone will profit from it.
Siguiente pregunta, por favor.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Eduardo Lagar, del periódico La Nueva España. Ante todo, felicidades, pues enhorabuena por el premio. Yo quería preguntarle, a raíz de las respuestas que ha dado su chatbot, BlenderBot, sobre cuando en Estados Unidos le preguntaban qué opinaban de Mark Zuckerberg, y él decía que el bot respondió que era una persona manipuladora y espeluznante, ¿no? Yo le quería preguntar a usted qué opina de Mark Zuckerberg y de la política que lleva a través de Meta.
Okay, let me answer about the chatbot first. So, this chatbot, like every chatbot that exists today, is trained with text that is collected from the internet. And a lot of text today in the media and on the internet are not very positive about Mark Zuckerberg. And so the chatbot that is trained with that text just reflects what it's read, and what it's read is the content that's available. And this points to a major limitation of those chatbots, which is that they integrate a lot of information from text. They are not particularly smart. Their understanding of the world is very shallow because they're only trained with text, and they really don't know anything about the underlying reality that this text refers to. In fact, I wrote a paper for a philosophy magazine called Noema a while back with a younger collaborator called Jacob Browning, on the fact that training AI systems purely from text will not lead us to human-level AI, because those systems really don't have any idea of the connection of the text to the underlying reality. And we've been arguing that most of human knowledge is not linguistic. Certainly all of animal knowledge is non-linguistic. But most of human knowledge is not linguistic. So you can say a lot about what will happen to the water in this glass if I shake it, right? It's very hard to explain. It's very easy to sort of intuitively predict what's going to happen. It's a mechanical, physical system that we have experience with. You can, of course, exactly predict what's going to happen if I push it too far, right? But this is not linguistic knowledge. It's procedural, physical. We have a model of the world in our head that connects it to the real world and makes it consistent, and those systems don't have it, which is why sometimes they say stupid things. So this is very far from perfect, even though when you talk to a dialogue system of this type, it's very impressive what they can say and their apparent capacity for reasoning. But in fact, their understanding of the world is extremely shallow. So we're working towards making this better. Now, the answer about Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is a very nice guy. He cares a lot about people. His mission in life is to connect people with each other. He figured at some point that the best way to do this was to create a company to do so, because that's the only way you can, hire talented people to work on the project. But really, his mission is to connect people with each other. And I think a lot of the bad press he gets are incorrect assumptions of ill intent. So when you create a very large system that connects 3 billion people with each other, there are going to be wonderful effects of this, which is people are going to talk to each other, etc. And then there are side effects that you could not predict that are bad. Like people are going to try to exploit the platform for things like hate speech or terrorist propaganda or pedophilia or things like that. So then you have to take drastic measures to take down this kind of content. And it's not easy. It requires AI systems. And the recent progress of AI actually has improved content moderation by enormous amounts over the last few years. So if you go back 4 years, in 2018, the proportion of hate speech that was automatically taken down by AI systems on Facebook was about 40%. The remaining 60% were flagged by users and then examined by human moderators and then taken down. Since then, that number has gone from 40% to somewhere between 95 and 97%, depending on the quarter, because we measure this every 3 months. So let's say around 95%. And that's entirely because of recent progress in AI, particularly in language understanding by systems. So we now have very large neural networks that can understand text in multiple languages and then detect hate speech with some decent level of reliability. It's very far from perfect, and we're making progress every day. And basically take down 95% of hate speech automatically before people see it. As a result, what's called the prevalence of hate speech on Facebook is 0.02%. So what that means is that if you see 10,000 posts or comments on Facebook, about 20 of them will possibly be things that are hate speech. It's very, very difficult to do this in all the languages that people use on Facebook. And for some languages, we just don't have enough data. But the progress has been enormous in that direction over the last few years. Okay, but Mark Zuckerberg is a very nice guy who has his heart in the right place. It's just that, Facebook and Meta now is an elephant in a China store. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and when they go wrong, the company, when it realizes something is wrong, addresses the problem and fixes it. I think Facebook should be scrutinized and examined and criticized, and particularly criticized if it is too slow or not good enough at identifying and correcting problems when they emerge. But what I'm seeing from inside the company is that when a problem is identified, a lot of resources are allocated to fixing it and correcting it. In the meantime, people are being hurt, but we do the best we can. And by the way, this is not my specialty, right? I do fundamental research in AI, so this is another part of the company, but I'm sort of speaking for them.
Gracias. Siguiente pregunta.
Buenos días, enhorabuena por el premio. Soy Carolina Gancedo de TPA, la televisión del Principado de Asturias. Antes mencionaba los avances en lo que va a ser traducción de idiomas. Yo quería saber si en el futuro va a ser innecesario completamente aprenderlos.
Maybe not. Perhaps within 10 years or 15 years or so, instead of carrying smartphones in our pockets, we will wear glasses that look just like yours or like mine, but they would be augmented reality glasses with a display inside. And so you would be speaking to me in Spanish, and I would see the subtitles displayed in my glasses in real time, and you would see Spanish translations of what I'm saying when I speak to you. So perhaps we would, once this technology is available, we can all use our native language to communicate, or we can have also speech-to-speech translation where your own voice would be used in a sort of English version of what you're saying, which I would hear in my ear. So now I must say that I feel sorry for the incredibly talented people who are doing the simultaneous translation here, but you still have probably 15 years to go here before that is generalized.
Soy Juan Vega, de Onda Cero. Yo quería preguntarle en relación a las redes sociales, un poco lo que comentábamos antes, ¿cuál es el próximo reto de la inteligencia artificial en redes sociales, ya no como bots en Facebook, etcétera, sino por ejemplo en Instagram, en todas estas redes sociales que el ser humano utiliza todos los días de manera masiva?
Oh, there's a lot of problems to solve, and for most of them, the main technical solution to them is based on AI. There are, of course, questions about product design, like, for example, what is the effect of particular media of communication, let's say like Instagram, Facebook, but that applies to TikTok and Snapchat and everything else, and YouTube. What is the effect of that on people in society? So there's no question that it has an effect, right? Every media, every new communication media, going back to the invention of the printing press and probably earlier than that, had profound effects on society and the way people communicate. And so inevitably there are effects of those things. The question is, how do you design those products so that the effects are positive? So, it's good for people to communicate and exchange experience, communicate across language barriers, share things with exciting things with friends and family and things like that. But you don't want to design the system so that those things become addictive and basically take up all your time. So in fact, going back to early 2018, Facebook completely redesigned its newsfeed system so that it would favor communication between friends as opposed to communication between, for example, news media and people, so that the interaction would be sort of more meaningful, if you want. So there was even an acronym for that, Meaningful Social Interaction, MSI. That was kind of the new way to design a newsfeed on Facebook, and there are kind of similar efforts there for all the social media. Now there is the problem I was mentioning before of suppressing objectionable content, either because it's illegal, which is the case in many European countries, or because it's just not good content to have on social media, because perhaps it favors rivalries, ethnic rivalries, religious rivalries. Not so much of a problem here, but in many countries it's the case. Sometimes those platforms are used by governments to actually sue conflicts, actually. It's used by some governments to corrupt the democratic process in other countries, or sometimes in their own country, by disseminating misinformation or things like that. So you have to take care of all of this, and there is no other solution to this than basically making AI better, because the scale of it is so large that you cannot possibly do this manually. So numbers like the ones I mentioned are really important. Now, those systems are very, very far from perfect. And we need to make them better, and that requires making those systems understand more about the context of how something is said. For example, you might make a post on social media that is ironic or is kind of a joke a little bit, but uses kind of words that seem possibly hateful. And those automated systems don't really understand kind of, second-degree humor, if you want. And so they will take it down. And you will not be happy about it because you thought you were making a joke. And now your content is being taken down. So this is because AI systems are not good enough yet. Now, going beyond that, increasingly, this is inevitable, increasingly, modern societies are producing more and more content, more and more digital content that we exchange with each other, or that we access through search engines or social networks, video games, etc. And we need a way for AI systems to help us manage that content, so that only the thing that is really useful to us comes to our ears or our eyes. So what we need basically are intelligent virtual assistants that are under our control, that play the role of what a human assistant would do, which is only bubble up to us the information that we really need or want to see, because it's useful, educational, entertaining, or whatever, or provoking even. And those systems will have to be under our control. And they essentially will have to have human-level AI, which is why the project of trying to work working towards building human-level AI system is interesting. Not because we can build systems that we will need over the next few years and decades. Now, there is another question for another reason why we need to work on human-level AI, and it's a scientific question. What is human intelligence? What is human nature? What is it that makes humans and many animals intelligent? What are the principles behind intelligence? Those are scientific questions that I'm personally interested in. But at the same time, if we understand them, we'll be able to potentially reproduce certain aspects of human intelligence in those intelligent assistants. If any one of you has seen the movie Her, the Spike Jonze movie from about 10 years ago, it's the love story of a sort of lonesome person with basically a virtual assistant. So there's a lot of, we're nowhere near having the technology for this, but it might be a good, at least at a high level, it's a good description of perhaps the kind of interaction people might have with virtual assistants in the next decades. This is not for tomorrow.